Hello, my friends. Welcome to week 15 of 52 Hebrew words that every Christian should know in our love letter to you, Deep Calls to Deep. And I just wanted to preface this by saying I don't go through these words just to make a video. I don't go through these words just to boringly read you a story. I go through these words so that you will be inspired and intrigued to find a deeper understanding of the love letter that God has sent to us in His Word. Sometimes we perceive everything from such a Western American perspective that we forget Yeshua came from a completely different culture. And the more we know about that culture, the more that we can know about Him. So I encourage you as we go through this book, as you are introduced to new words, that you try to seek Him out a little deeper. Find more meaning, more depth, more fulfillment in your pursuit of knowing and loving God. So we are on week 15, and this is one of my favorite words, and I'll explain to you why. Our word for the day is Anavah, which means humility. I'm going to start with what he says, and then I'm going to add a little to it. Have you ever been humbled by nature? Have you ever walked through a field of tulips or watched a sunset and been reminded how incredibly awesome that God is and how really small that we are by comparison? It's humbling. The Hebrew word Anavah is what we translate as humility, but the literal definition of Anavah is to occupy your God-given space in the world. Not to overestimate yourself and your abilities, but not to underestimate them either. There's a story in the Bible about a group of people who tried to build a tower to heaven in order to make a name for ourselves, which is Genesis 11:4. They wanted fame, to be known, respected, and honored for their achievements. Their motivation was the opposite of Anavah. They wanted to take up more than their God-given space in the world. They overestimated themselves and their abilities. We live in a world full of likes, retweets, followers, fans, and favorites, and it's easy to determine our self-worth based on how many or how few of these we have. When we underestimate our worth or ourselves, that is not Anavah. That is not humility. Growing up, I was taught that humility was thinking less of yourself by taking up the smallest possible space. When we do this, we don't take up as much space that it squeezes others out, and we don't take up so little space that our responsibilities fall to others. What if, just for today, you resolve to serve others by simply taking up the space God has given you to occupy? Nothing more and nothing less. And this word Anavah has special meaning for me because I had a dear, dear sister who we called Anavah. And I know out here in the world, you get one name and your parents gives it to you, but in Scripture it talks about there's a name that only God knows. And I think sometimes when you are surrounded by people who actually can see who God's created you to be, He can add that name to you. That's how I got Simca, and that's how my dear friend got Anavah. And Anavah just recently crossed the veil to the other side, and her impact in this world was great in the lives of many. She's not famous. Nobody really knows who she is except for those whose lives that she touched. But when Anavah first came to the Lord, Anavah tried to take up more space than probably what was meant for her to take. And we watched through the years as God worked through her and on her and created this beautifully humble, giving, selfless woman to the very end. And so I want to dedicate this particular video, this particular message to my dear friend Anavah and her family. And I wanted to do this one yoga pose for you. Sorry if that went a little long. And when I think of humility, I always think of being before the Father and wanting to almost bow before him. So we're just going to do a simple pose, and I actually think we've done it before, but that's going to be fine. This is a closed hip posture, so your hips are facing forward, and I'm going to let you determine how far apart you want your legs to go. And just the farther apart they are, a little harder it is. And we're going to hinge right here from the hips. And you're going to try to come to at least a flat back. You may feel a little tug in those hamstrings. And if you need to, it is perfectly fine to just bend and straighten here. The goal being that as you get warmer and your spine gets longer, that you can forward fold. Don't worry about getting your nose to your knee. Think more about lengthening your spine. Take a deep breath in. Take a slow breath out. Ask God to fill you with his humility, acknowledging he's King of the universe, and we are not. And then if it's available to you, reaching your arms behind you, you're going to drop them to the floor, then in front of you, and use those arms to help lift you straight up. Bringing those biceps alongside the ears, I want you to just tip backwards, heart to the heavens, open, available, willing for God to do his work in you. Bringing those palms together, I want you to bring them in front of your heart. You're going to step your back foot to the front foot into your mountain pose, and then we're going to step the other leg back. So for me, that's going to be the left leg. I don't know which leg you started with. And remember, both sides aren't going to feel the same. So again, right at the hips, legs are nice and straight. On your exhale, lengthen that spine. Try to go at least halfway. And then if you need to, again, feel free, bend and straighten. The goal is to free the body up, not to force it. And then as you exhale, moving slower and lower down towards the floor. Wiggling and squirming all that you need to. You can have some blocks here. And at any point you want to bend and straighten, feel free to do that. We didn't take the time to warm up here. Deeply breathe. And then reaching those arms behind you, fingers fully extended, drop those arms towards the floor. As your arms come in front of you, let's sweep the torso forward and up, biceps right alongside the ears, tipping backwards from the hips as best you can. Eyes, heart, mind open. Find your breath. Palms come together, hands to the heart. Step your foot forward, ending in your mountain pose. And I pray that this was a blessing to you, and that, as always, God's peace and his power and his presence would be with each one of you. Shalom.